What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow, today we are here doing another Survivor podcast. We are going to be talking about episode 4, Signed, Sealed, and Delivered, Survivor season 32. Wow, what a crazy emotional episode. I had my highs and my lows, and then at the end, I was just really annoyed. So, my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and I'm totally with Rachel on the annoyance factor, just because the end of that episode was a mess. But we have to start from the beginning, as we always do. So, Debbie, Rachel, what do you have to say on this?
Yeah, I'm glad. I think we're seeing a lot from Debbie. Maybe it's foreshadowing. It's some good signs because Debbie took the position of the mastermind behind the Liz vote out, and then she actually got to claim the reward of it by being like, I was a mastermind in a confessional, and then she went up to Peter and comforted him and whatever. But literally she got that emotional confessional after she was down at the reward challenge. So that's skipping ahead, but we got to see a lot from Debbie. So that could be good signs for the future or something, maybe some big moves. So yeah, what about you?
I think that Debbie did all the right things in this situation. If you vote someone's ally out, your goal is not to gloat about it, because in that sense you're only going to make it worse and you're going to increase their animosity towards you. And I feel like that's kind of what happened to the Brawn tribe, where Scot and Jason just kept gloating and being like, well, we saved you this time, Alecia, and then that built up the animosity until it's really just a toxic situation, and no one wants to be there. So kudos to Debbie for keeping that from happening.
Yeah, I thought it was so funny when Debbie was saying the hippocampus and the amygdala and then the frontal lobes again. That's her new catchphrase. But yeah, in that first opening scenes before the reward challenge, we see that Peter is still being really cocky and stuff. He is in a confessional saying I'm still gonna take everyone out one by one later. This is just a minor setback. So not sure how that'll work, but
Yeah, we didn't really see much before the challenge started, and I think it's pretty obvious why when you see what the challenge is. So I'll explain that for you all. So basically, what happened was it was a race, as most Survivor challenges are. So they had to run and then dig underneath a log that was placed in the sand. So they had to dig away all of the sand so people would be able to fit underneath the log. And after that, they had to go into a sand pit and dig up 3 bags of balls and then use those balls to do a skee ball type thing where they have to get 6 balls into 6 holes. And once that happens, they win the reward, which in this case was coffee and spices. So I think that I speak for everyone when I say that the challenge was a lot more difficult than anticipated.
Yeah, basically, I was thinking it was a blessing in disguise, quoting Liz or Peter, to sit out of that challenge. So Neil got to sit out, and then Julia and Anna got to sit out. So, maybe it was a blessing in disguise that those 3 didn't have to go through with it. And then, they weren't tired when they went through.
Yeah, so the biggest part of this reward challenge obviously was the sand pit, and they spent 45 minutes digging in the sand pit, and it took them forever to find their bags of balls. And part of the thing with this, I think, is the fact that they weren't really using logic when they were digging. They were digging deeper instead of digging further out. And in a challenge like that, I can't see the producers digging or putting a bag of balls 4 feet into the ground. And I think it would have been a better strategy for them to start in the center and spiral out to find the bags in the most efficient manner. But they all seem to be kind of digging willy-nilly.
Yeah, 4 feet down, that would be like digging your own grave. But yeah, I see that because definitely the contestants don't know, like, how deep down or how like spread out everything would be. So it's sort of trial and error, I guess. And yeah, the hot sand, because when the sun is really hot, just even like going to the beach, when you step on the sand and like you take your shoes off, the sand is really warm, and then you don't want to have your whole body in there. It just feels like it would be really hot, so
But once you
difficult.
get past the first layer, like the first 6 inches of sand, I think that it cools down quite a bit. But that's beside the point. So obviously, like you said, it took them 45 minutes to find their bags, which I
Yeah,
think made the
yeah.
challenge total like an hour long if you include the part where they were sliding under and when they did the ski ball and stuff.
I thought it was so funny how everyone was out of the gate so quickly. Like the beginning part of the challenge was like 2 seconds, and then the end took so long, but everyone was running at the beginning. So it's sort of like the juxtaposition for that in between there.
Yeah, I think that it was kind of designed to make the viewers believe that it would be a really close challenge, that it would be down to the wire. So,
Yeah, so after those 45 minutes of digging, Debbie is the first one to go down. And good for Joe being like, Debbie, do you need medical? And then calling medical over for Debbie, because Debbie was saying later how she was afraid that getting medical or something would make her seem weaker or make her tribe want to vote her out because she isn't as strong as some people may think. And crazy, how is she only 98 pounds?
part of what I kind of hated about that part of the challenge was the fact that later Debbie was like, "Oh, I knew it was heat stroke immediately," and Joe was like, nah." Like Joe had to be the one to tell her that she was having heat stroke, and he had to be the one to put his foot down and say, "You need medical attention." And I think that if he hadn't, Debbie might have been the next one to go, because part of the thing with heating up like that is the longer you stay at a certain temperature, the harder it is to get that temperature back down, which is why doctors say even if you have a pretty mild fever, like if you have a 104-degree fever, if it stays that way for a long time, you still need to go to a hospital. So,
Yeah, and that might have been Caleb's downfall and biggest problem, because at the end of the challenge when Beauty got second place, Caleb was totally rocking it. He scored, a lot of the balls, and then he scored the final ski hole. So he was totally rocking it, and then his body gave out and he was the second one to go down, and it was so crazy. It happened so fast. Like the challenge, they got second, and then he went down, then Cydney was down, and then Jeff was so focused on Debbie, and then Jeff and all like the other important, really important medical was on Debbie when the other two went down, so their like attention was not focused on everyone.
yeah, I think part of it with Caleb was he had to do the challenge for what must have been at least 10 minutes longer than Debbie did, and Debbie was in pretty bad shape. And then Caleb had to do the extra time, and obviously Caleb is a lot bulkier. So when he's moving, he's generating a lot more heat, and he doesn't have as large of a surface area to body mass ratio as Debbie does, so he's not cooling off as efficiently as she does. And he went for the shade instinctively, which I think was interesting to see. And then the beauty tribe obviously seemed really freaked out, and they were calling medical over kind of frantically because I think they realized how bad Caleb was. Just with he seemed fine, and then all of a sudden he was down.
Yeah, so Caleb goes down, and then, like you were saying, all of the beauty tribe, they're helping him, giving him water, holding his feet up and stuff, which was really nice to see. And then we saw Jason helping Cydney out a lot. And then once Jeff realizes that 3 people are literally dead, are like down, you
Not
know?
literally. Don't say the word literally when you don't mean it. They didn't die.
Basically, this is the episode where almost everyone dies. But after the 3 are down, then we see 100 people on the beach, you know, helping everyone out, and then Jeff is like, all people, you know, you have to come and help. It was really hectic, and we saw so many people like holding umbrellas, doing water, you know, and then it's just crazy to see how all of these people are standing outside of the cameras usually, so they aren't ever in the shot, but all these people are always there, especially during like water challenges. They've got a ton of people out there to make sure everyone's safe.
Yeah, we saw that last season when the safety swimmers had to grab Tasha. But one thing that a lot of people asked, like in the comments of articles and stuff, is why Peter wasn't helping. And he said on Twitter that he was not allowed to help because of various legal reasons. And he also said that he suggested that the medical team put everyone into the ocean because obviously the ocean's water is cooler than core body temperature. But a lot of people were also saying that it's a bad idea to go into salt water when you're dehydrated. So, yeah, even though he's an ER doctor, he was not allowed to help. And one thing that I think we should also mention is that I was telling Rachel this earlier, but someone did literally die in Cambodia. The French version of Survivor had their 13th season in Cambodia, and a contestant went down because of heat stroke, and they put him in a helicopter to go back to the mainland, but he had a series of heart attacks in the helicopter and died. So a lot of people are pointing to this as a reason why the producers should have been more careful, and it was kind of negligent of them to allow the contestants to dig in the heat for so long, because they probably did know that that had happened, and they really only sprang into action after it became apparent just how bad people were.
Yeah, after Debbie went down, and even when the medical was helping the 3 people, they were sweating bullets just helping the other people, you know, when they have the fans and the shade and everything. They were sweating. So imagine doing all that physical exercise when you are dehydrated, when you don't have any food. You know, your body takes a toll, and that would mean the contestants would be more likely to have those kind of problems than like the medical team was already sweating and, you know, looking really hot just while they were helping people. And yeah, Peter definitely would not be able to help anyone because, you know, even though he is a doctor in the ER, he could have like an alternative agenda while helping someone out and purposely get them medevac or something, you know, legal reasons.
I think that that's unfair. I don't think that he would have an alternative agenda. I think it's more you're putting someone who is mentally and physically compromised into a situation where they could compromise other people unintentionally. Like, if you're exhausted and you're dehydrated, you're not going to be much help to someone else who is also exhausted and dehydrated. And someone pointed out that after Peter took his last shot in the skee ball thing, he like dropped to his knee. And
Yeah.
obviously that's not something you do just because you want a better angle for skee ball.
Yeah, when medical is called in, definitely Peter can't be helping. But if something happens like back on their tribe, then he could help because other doctors in other seasons, when people get sick or whatever, they help them out and like tell them what to do, you know, to get better and stuff. So, but when medical is called in, you definitely can't have other contestants like doing that to try to help. But, you know, back at camp and stuff, when Jeff and the medical and everything, and it's not like a huge serious thing, but if someone has, you know, is a little dehydrated and throwing up and whatever, then you can like tell them what to do.
Okay. But yeah, so as we all know, Caleb eventually got medevaced, and Cydney and Debbie were both allowed to stay in the competition. And I heard some chatter about how if people were Cydney, they would be miffed because Cydney never really seemed to get that much screen time or medical attention compared to Caleb, but personally, I don't think that should be what people are talking about, because Caleb had to be medically evacuated from the game, and Cydney obviously didn't, so...
Yeah, and just like there's so many scenarios that could have happened, should have happened, would have happened if things were different on the episode. You know, there's a ton of things that could have gone differently to change the outcome of the medevac. But we should get points. I cried during the episode. I shed a tear. It was very sad when Caleb had to go, and then all the beauty and even people on other tribes were crying. It just sucks to be medically evacuated, because it's not like being voted out when you sort of have some closure as your reason to leaving the game. But being medically evacuated, there are so many what ifs. Like, what if, you know, I didn't participate in that challenge? If Caleb sat out instead of one of the girls, you know, he wouldn't have been medically evacuated today. But there's just so many unopened, unanswered questions that, and just, you know, he had a whole game left to play. It wasn't even the double digits in days yet.
I think that it's pretty safe to say that Caleb will be coming back to Survivor very, very soon, because the placard that played right before commercial break said that he enjoyed his time on the game and wanted to play again. And then he had that bit during the credits where he was talking about how Survivor was such an amazing experience. I personally am all for Caleb playing the game again, because I love him, and we have talked several times about how much we love Caleb, which was unexpected but very nice. So
yeah, I really liked Caleb this season. He was literally hot this episode with a temperature of like 113 was on the screen at one point. So he was literally hot. Yeah, so speaking of the beauty, there was a secret scene posted by Survivor on CBS's YouTube channel of the beauty girls after the medevac, talking about, they really compartmentalized the whole thing, which I admire. The three girls were just like, you know, Caleb is out, you know, it sucks, but now we have to move on. And Caleb being out, this means better for the three girls. It's better for us, because now they don't need to bring over a guy to have the majority of four, but now they have the core three and can pick between Ty or Nick to vote out. So they're very, you know, they were sad about Caleb, but then they moved on and realized it still is the game, and now they have the power, and now the cards are in their hands until, yeah.
I think part of the thing about the Beauty Girl Alliance is that, unlike the alliances on the Brain Tribe, which are like two people, they have numbers, but they also have really solid numbers. Like, personally, I wouldn't consider the alliance of three on the Brawn Tribe really all that solid, just because they have shown that they're very willing to turn on one of their allies if they say the wrong thing. Like, Jenny just said the wrong thing at the wrong time, and she got voted out in a snap. And personally, I think that there's too much, like, negativity among the three of them to really have a solid alliance in the long term.
Yeah, like you just said, definitely that. I think the Beauty Girl Alliance, I'm really hoping, yeah, they seem so OP. I really hope that they can have a strong female alliance. They seem like they can do really well, so we'll see next week about that.
Yeah.
The fun part now.
So, Scott and Jason, we're just...
This is the part of the episode that really, like, peeved me off and made me so mad. And then after the episode, I just couldn't do anything, because this was all I could think about, and I couldn't. I
just think people have said, like, oh, Alycia provoked them or whatever. But it's like, when you say that someone verbally abused someone else because they were provoked, like, that's the kind of language people use to justify domestic abuse. Like, they made me do it because they were being too whiny, or they were being too weak, or they were being too this, or they were being too that. And the fact that, like, Jason and Scott think that it's okay to talk to someone that way. Like, even if Alecia had been another guy, I would be peeved just because everyone's talking about this as if it was like two guys talking to a girl, but I think it should be thought about in terms of two humans talking to another human like she is worthless.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly. I was commenting on other Survivor related videos saying like how this just annoyed us so much, and then people commented saying, oh, because Alecia was annoying, like Scot and Jason have warrant to treat her like a piece of insert those words there. But literally, like you just said, treating another person like they're lesser than you, like they're inferior than you, just because you claim that she is annoying, that is not a reason to be treating her that way. She is a person. Also, she's a part of your team. And then we saw in the reward challenge when Scot is just sitting there and not doing anything, and Alecia says, she says, you know, let's keep
digging
going.
or something
Yeah,
along
keep
those lines.
digging. And then I wrote down what Scot says. He said, keep cheerleading. It's what you're best at. But then after the challenge, he changes what he's saying and he like flips it around and he's like, oh, I only said keep cheerleading because I wanted to boost the morale of our team. Like,
Okay,
no.
Scott talks about how he's a part of a team because he's like an NBA champion. I'm sure that if you like keep up with Survivor articles, you know that Scott did absolutely nothing in the playoffs of the championship that he won. Like he literally was never on the court.
No,
He
that
played
isn't.
0 minutes. I have played as many minutes in championship games as Scott Pollard has, and he just happened to have a ring for it because he was on the team when it happened.
That's exactly what I was saying. I was like, nobody cares that you played professional basketball. Nobody, literally nobody knows who you are. But that is basically everything that he brings back to. That is basically his whole background. That is all he thinks he's like worth or whatever, because he keeps bringing it up. He's like, how many teams have you been on, Alecia? 0? But then Alecia brings up a great point. Whether it's your kid's football or soccer team or the NBA, it doesn't matter. You have to be a team player. And being on the NBA, how does he not see that? And he's saying, because I was with professionals, it's different.
Yeah, like a team is not a team because of how much they get paid. A team is a team because of how much they care about each other. And it's just like we've already like dug into Scott, but I also have a bone to pick with Kyle Jason because he's always talking about how he loves his 2 daughters and how he like loves them so much and how he would do anything for them. Like if someone talked to your daughters the way that you talk to Alecia, you would have hogtied them and thrown them into the back of your pickup truck. Come on,
Exactly.
come on.
He keeps calling Alecia Blondie. He keeps saying these rude things to her. And he said to her this episode, why don't you get on board with this team? What? Basically, Scott and Kyle Jason are basically up each other's asses, and they're literally so a pair, and they just both are attacking Alecia.
And it's like even Jeff Probst thinks that they were like out of line with that. And I think the fact that Kyle Jason refused to learn Alicia's name, or if he learned it, refused to call her by it, is just like I can understand being annoyed with someone. I can understand like being mean to her because she's too annoying in some circumstances. But what I cannot understand is disrespecting someone so much that you wouldn't even call them by their name. Like he called Darnell by his name, and Darnell got voted off first.
Yeah, like, oh my god, I need to figure out how to phrase this. But like, just they're being so derogatory and saying these kind of rude kind of comments, and just saying because she's annoying, like, and you have to live with her 24/7, that's like the real world. You have to go to work and work with people 24/7, and you can't be calling your coworkers names like that, and you can't be rude or else you're going to be fired. So it's just like sort of like a real world life lesson. If Scott was rude on his NBA team and did stuff like that, it would make the national news, and then he wouldn't be, picked or whatever to be back on the team.
Yeah, so pretty much the last 5-10 minutes of this podcast, if you want a TLDR, Scott and Jason both suck, and we would be very happy to talk more with you about that in the comments below.
Yep. Hopefully they get voted out soon, or even better, quit, because that would help our fantasy teams. But just the one last thing, they were saying how to Alycia, it's lucky, like you're lucky you're even still here.
You had the choice to vote her out, and you didn't, so shut up.
I don't know. And yeah, so go Alycia. I was really hoping that she would not go home this episode because I really wanted to see her make a tribe swap, because I feel like she was doomed from the beginning, being put on the Brawn while being the skinniest girl. She doesn't have that Brawn physique that all the other Brawn people have, and they were very Brawn strong, as in, if you don't have the muscles, we're going to get rid of you because you're not Brawn enough, so you don't fit this mold. But I think Alycia is such a great role model for boys and girls. She's not intimidated by the bully. She stood up for herself, and she's a strong, independent female. So I don't know what Kyle Jason was saying about how Alycia is not a strong, independent female, because she totally is. I wanted her to come back and then backstab Jason and Scott and get them voted out.
I think that Alycia belongs on the Brawn tribe just because she's scrappy. She's never gonna let someone tear her down, and no matter what Scott and Jason said to her, she still kept trucking and kept trucking. She made their fire. She helped as best as she could, and I think that she deserves a lot of respect for that, and we love her.
Yeah, so it's basically a double sad episode with that. Sad when Caleb's gone, mad during that whole scene, and then sad that Alycia got voted out. But I guess we can immunity challenge or nah.
Immunity challenge. I don't think there's really that much to say. Peter screwed up, but then he redeemed himself with the puzzle. He got that puzzle real quick. He must have some spatial awareness that I don't have, because that puzzle looked really confusing.
Yeah, I noted down that the brain was the last to get to the snake puzzle, but then they were the first to finish. So good for them, I sort of didn't want to see Brawn go to tribal, because then, it's the fate. Alicia's going to be voted out, which was a bummer, but good for Brawn, good for Brain and Beauty. They are rocking it so far.
Part of what makes me kind of angry was in the immunity challenge, Alycia specifically asked Scott and Jason if they wanted to swap in, and it's Scott is tall enough that he'd be able to see the whole board, and seeing the big picture in a puzzle like that is important. And Kyle Jason is always talking about how he's a bounty hunter, and how he has to use clues to figure out where his target is or whatever, and it's they could both have tried at the puzzle.
Yeah, maybe they just want their team to fail because they are hot mess #1 right now.
It could just be deep in their heart of hearts, they don't want to win.
They like losing. How many games did Scott lose on the NBA?
Probably a lot.
Who knows? Did he ever play in the NBA? But what also peeved me off was when Scott and Jason said, let's go to tribal right now.
I can't believe that they thought Alycia would actually agree to that. I just think it's so rude, because not only are you saying that she's all of those things that we already talked about and already got angry about, you're also saying you're not worth the time to spend deliberating over. You have absolutely no chance of swaying any of us. Personally, I think that was just the wrong move for Cydney. Wrong move.
Yeah, the audacity to say that to Jeff. And then, Alycia must feel so bad, about herself, because if someone said that you are definitely going home tonight, you'd be bummed out, and there's nothing you can do because everyone on your tribe is set in stone. It's just sort of sad. And yeah, if there were not a tribe swap next week, which Brawn doesn't even know that there's a tribe swap next week, so
Cydney is in deep doo-doo.
Cydney's the bottom of their alliance. It would have been more beneficial for her to ditch those two guys and go with Alecia to try to do like a fire challenge to get one of them out or something. Because if there weren't a tribe swap next week or whatever, the game is always changing. But if Brawn went to tribal again, just those three, Alecia or Cydney would be the next one out. So they're not thinking that their tribe is just self-destructing.
So now that we've got all of that anger out, here comes more anger. Me and Rachel are both losing miserably on the fantasy teams.
So sad, more crying.
We were talking about this before we started podcasting, but we think that part of this has to do with the fact that my twin sister got to pick first every round. And we were talking about how if we ever do this again, we're going to have it so whoever gets to pick first rotates in each round, just because, like, I got the short end of the straw, and I ended up getting, like, pretty much all of the rejects. So, yeah. So this week, my sister, aka the computer team, got 14 new points, she got 4 sets of 2 for Debbie, Kyle, Michele, and Ty, all crying. So 4 times 2 is 8. She got 1 point for Debbie being checked by medical. Quick note, we added that in when we saw that there was going to be like a medical evacuation, just because we thought, well, they should also get a point if they get checked by medical, but don't get sent home. She got 5 points for Caleb naming the episode, so that brings her total to 14, and her total overall is 38. Rachel,
Yeah.
do you want to do your points?
Yeah, so the computer team currently is in first place with 38 points. I am in second place with 27.5 points. This week I got +6, so +2 for each of these people crying, of Alecia, Cydney, and Julia crying. I got +1 because Cydney was checked out by medical, and then +2.5 points for Alicia's placement point from her getting voted out this episode. So I'm in second place right now.
What's your new total?
27.5.
And I am in third place. Not getting points for an entire week really screwed me over. But I got a point for Caleb being checked out by medical, 2 points because Anna cried, 2 points because Caleb was medevac, and then 2 points for Caleb's placement. So I got 7 points this week for a total of 22. I was saying this earlier, but I think that I should have gotten points for Caleb crying, because if he had had enough liquid in his body, he probably would have.
Yes. So yeah, next week we saw in the previews that there would be a tribe swap. Crazy, because during the episode, since I had to watch it later, I was texting Alyssa like, oh, maybe a tribe swap in 2 weeks, because this week there is only 13 people next time. So I was like, that's an odd number. I wonder what'll happen. And then Survivor on CBS on YouTube posted a like preview thing saying, tribe swaps next week with a twist, ... an end video. So maybe an outcast twist or a merge, because 13, that would be what, 4, 4, 5. That wouldn't make sense. They could add 2 people that got voted out and make it 5, 5, 5.
Or they could vote out another person and make it 4, 4, 4.
True.
Personally, I think that the outcast twist would be a lot more interesting, because I think that there are some people that were voted out, most notably Alecia, who probably wouldn't have been voted out if they were put on a different tribe or were in a different situation.
Yeah, how many people got voted out so far? 4, 5? Or 4. Technically, Caleb wouldn't be better enough to get back in, I guess.
Yeah.
So 4. So if 2 people came back, I would definitely want to see Darnell, Jen, Alecia, and Liz, all of them, because I feel like they would have more game left to play. Like Jen, especially all four of them got voted out prematurely. Darnell just lost the glasses. Jen just talked too much at Tribal, and then her crazy tri-mates voted her out. Alecia, definitely I would want to see her and how she would play with people that aren't Scot and Jason. And Liz, you know, maybe her alliance with Peter was her downfall.
I don't know. I feel like I might not want to see as many of them come back just because if you're going by tribal numbers, if after the merge they decide to stay within their tribe lines, like Beauty is a voting block, Brains is a voting block, and Brawn is a voting block, this gives Brawn the most advantage in that just because they got a second chance with a lot of their people, whereas Brains and Beauty wouldn't get as much of a second chance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like all four can't come back, so maybe something, I hope that would be so interesting if they did an Outcast twist or something. Throwback to Andrew Savage days. But yeah, or if they did a challenge really quick right there and then the losing tribe had to vote someone out, so then it was all even and then they swappity swipped.
Yeah, because they do sometimes have challenges and then they say, okay, you're going to tribal right now, which reduces a lot of the time that you get for deliberation and stuff, so.
Or yeah, what if it's something with there's like 3 team captains when you pick a different color thing or whatever from everyone else. So 3 team captains, and if you're the odd one out, instead of being sent to Exile Island, you're just out of the game. That would be so sucky, but that would be a big twist.
Didn't they do it before once where they had like a day 0 and then 2 people
Yeah.
were
On the
eliminated
on
without
the
ever having
first
to leave?
day, yeah. Like after 24 hours. That sucked. I didn't think they would actually get rid of the people. That was sad for them, but
Yeah, because you never even really got to play the game. But anyways, we've been talking for a very long time, and we really hope that you guys enjoyed this podcast. We certainly enjoyed making it, mostly because we got to rag on Kyle, Jason, and Scott. But we really hope to see you guys next week, and we hope that our predictions about the tribe swap are correct, because it would be really cool if there was an outcast twist. So yeah, we will see you next week, and
yes.
bye.
Thank you so much for watching and subscribing and commenting. You know, like we always say, we love doing this. So maybe some more guest stars in the future and stuff. So we will see you guys next time.
Bye.